Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to put out this video real quick on something I find interesting. Let's call them quirks for Final Fantasy VII Remake on the PC. As most of you know, it's recently launched on Epic, and also includes all of the previously exclusive PlayStation 5 DLC. But upon booting the game and playing around a bit with it in my own time, I'd actually just finished Guardians of the Galaxy, which is pretty damn awesome, and now playing Halo Infinite. Well, yeah, things with Final Fantasy VII seemed a bit weird. I had been told by a few people at this point that the game's built-in resolution options are working a little strangely. I'll get more into that in a moment. But by golly gosh, FF7 is literally one of my favourite games ever on the original PlayStation. And I own the PS4 original release for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but the lower frame rate, slow load times and stuff, it just meant that eventually I decided to wait until I got the game on the PS5, the upgrade. But now, of course, it's coming out on PC, because I just didn't get around to playing it on the PS5. I thought, well, okay. So yeah, as I was saying, I was playing around with it a little bit yesterday, and yeah, the game's graphics options are pretty bare-boned. There's not many, really, unfortunately, and while the game is kind of a visual match for the PS5 in quality mode, it doesn't benefit for PC-specific things. So, for example, DLSS isn't here, AMD's FSR isn't present, and we also don't get things like, ray tracing. So this is a little bit sad, because we actually saw a whole heap of benefits for Final Fantasy 15 for the PC release, but ho-hum. Not a problem, at least we get 4K 120Hz mode. Well, as I alluded to earlier, there are a few problems. Now, you can see here at the beginning areas of the game, I've actually gone a little bit further than this, but I don't want to risk spoilers for those of you who are yet to play the game, as this video is more aimed at people who are considering buying it. Basically, the game is running at a lower resolution when you're cranking up the FPS, and it also is, of course, contingent on your GPU. So this seems to be an effort to increase the frame rate to whatever your target is. So it's using a downscaling solution, and you can see it in these shots. I've tested with both an RTX 3080 Ti as well as an RTX 3060. I haven't had a chance to look at this with an AMD GPU. Maybe I'll install it in my Ryzen rig and give it a shot as well. But long story short, you can't just be like, oh, okay, I want to run up to 120Hz and definitely at 4K and uncap the FPS. Basically, there's dynamic resolution in play. And this is a pain in the ass at best, because it means that all of the FPS results that we've seen just aren't right. You know, people have benchmarked the title and they're just not quite accurate. Particularly when we get into the second issue, and that is perhaps even worse, frame pacing / duplicate frames. Now, I won't get into the whole spiel of how PC games are generally benchmarked. Most of you know how this works, and to be honest, it's a bit outside the scope of this video. But yeah, essentially you would use something like Riva Tuner Statistics, or whatever application you choose to use. Essentially, a new frame is spat out, and the engine, GPU, and so on hum along nicely. But FF7R is not humming along to the same tune. Basically, it seems that the game engine itself is actually deciding to spit out duplicate frames. And yeah, I mean, duplicate frames aren't anything incredibly unusual for games. I mean, we've seen them, of course, on consoles, especially for the previous generation, when the GPU just couldn't keep up with things. It even happened in like 30 FPS titles, for example, quite regularly. But here, the game is literally reporting 120Hz in NVIDIA's GeForce Experience, as you can see above. By the way, it is the same with other software. I've tried a few different things out, but it's just not doing that. I've slowed down the footage a ton here, and you can see clearly when there are duplicate frames. It's just poor pacing. And I've also used a separate capture rig as well, and yeah, it's just a thing. If I switch from 4K to just 1080p, things do clear up a lot with our testing using, again, the RTX 3080 Ti. New frames are much more consistent. But, of course, this is going to be a problem when things get busier. Obviously, if you're using a lower performance GPU, or you're in a more demanding area in the game, and so on, your mileage will definitely vary, and again, it will also differ depending on the resolution. And yeah, what does this mean for you? Well, so far the game is technically playable. So just to be clear here, I mean that I've not had any hard locks, I've not had any major crashes or anything like that, but there are a number of issues, including the ones I've mentioned above. So yeah, I did want to put this video out real fast because a number of you, of course, are kind of interested in the idea of this title, and to be clear, I do think that this is not something that can't be fixed. Certainly an update could fix a lot of these issues, but this is definitely a fairly ropey PC port. Certainly one of the worst we've seen from the company in a while, and it's certainly a step or two back, okay, a continent back, from the level of optimization and additions we saw from the PC release of Final Fantasy 15, which actually was one of the first titles even which adopted Nvidia's DLSS technology. Anyway, that's just about it for this video. As I said, I want to make it just a quickie for today, but hopefully you found it informative or useful or something around there. If you have, then you know of course what to do, and I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.